Right, we're going to rank the top 10 players in Premier League history, and I'm going to wind a lot of people up with this one, I think. But I can argue every single thing right here. Also, I've made a rule for myself. No goalkeepers, no defenders. You don't have to abide by that. You can do what you want. But I have made a rule for myself. Shall I get us started?
Yeah.
In at number 10, Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, I respect that from you, actually, because I thought maybe there would be no Steven Gerrard representation, because obviously he hasn't won the Premier League title, and obviously there's a rival kind of fan from Man United perspective. I think Gerrard has to be in there. He has to be in there for the amount of goals that he scored for playing for one of the biggest clubs in the country. And the fact that he gets into all-time Premier League 11s without winning that Premier League title says so much about his quality as a footballer. I think it's what he represents
as well, isn't it? Like, you know, and he still won a lot of trophies at Liverpool. Won the Champions League with a team that was... I saw a clip of Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher and stuff when they went to the Ataturk recently, didn't they? And like Gary Neville went, that's probably the worst team to ever win the Champions League. And Carragher's like, I love that. Like he loves that it's the worst team, but that says so much about the likes of Gerrard and
peak Gerrard. I think he's the best midfielder if you talk about his peak in terms of physical attributes, his speed through the lines, his passing range, defending. We talk about someone like Paul Scholes. He couldn't defend. Like Gerrard could be a centre back. He could be a world class centre back on his day, in my opinion. Then he's a bit, didn't he? Yeah, right back, and then you see him as a false right line wing with Torres. Yeah, he was the most complete midfielder in the history of the Premier League.
It was interesting to see why Benitez put him out on the right wing, though. Did you watch that? Stick to football.
I've seen some of Benitez,
he didn't want him in the middle. He put him out wide.
What was the rationale?
It was kind of like to do with his tactical abilities and stuff. He just felt like he was better out on the right, which I found quite weird. But yeah, 10 for me, Steven Gerrard. What's yours?
I've gone for Gareth Bale. I think he's the greatest British player in history. He represented a lot of that at Real Madrid, don't get me wrong. Basically none of it at Spurs, didn't win any league titles. But the level he performed at for 3 years, I think the way he came from Southampton had such a terrible start to his life at Spurs. And to get to the precipice of being the best footballer, I think, in the world when he left Spurs to join Real Madrid. That trajectory is historic. He was doing things on the football pitch Premier League football's basically never seen, except for 2 or 3 other players that we can obviously include in the list. The way he carry the ball, shoot from 30, 40 yards. Outrageous.
Yeah, I think it...
I'm surprised to see him in the top 10, though. He did have that period, remember that period where he never won a game?
Yeah, exactly.
Games,
at the start.
Maybe not that long, but it was
close to 20 games.
He was a left back for a lot of that, I think.
Yeah. But to go from there, we talk about players now and they're a little bit static and they arrive and they don't quite... He went from basically being a complete zero. Spurs fans thought he was a bad luck kind of charm to go to the best player in the world in a couple of years, becoming a front three player, basically a striker. The goal against West Ham, if you remember that, where he just shifted. The goal against Stoke City. These are some of the best ever.
Was that Stoke?
That was against Stoke City, open day of the season, I think. But these are some of the best goals in the history of English football.
Gareth Bale's an interesting one. I didn't think about him when I did my top 10, but shout, raw.
In number 10, I've got Rio Ferdinand. Obviously, I get slightly concerned when these lists come out and you do it this way, that when you say 10, it sounds like it's a bit of a dig or an insult. Yeah. And I don't want it to be...
There's thousands of players that you haven't mentioned.
Perfectly put. There are thousands of players that I haven't mentioned. So I have a natural tendency to kind of favour attacking players, which means a player of Rio Ferdinand's quality being in my top 10 is actually very difficult. But I think for what he did, the way that he sort of revolutionised the game, the longevity, the success, the consistency from Ferdinand, you think throughout, wherever he went, he was the best defender at the club, QPR aside. It was a sensational career.
QPR.
What was it?
Sat with Bobby Zamora.
Yeah, it's like, why are you doing this to yourself?
Why are you here?
Why are you here?
Yeah. Why are you in a relegation? Yeah. It's a legitimate question as well. I went Rio Ferdinand at 10.
Yeah, Rio would have been in my top 10 if I did defenders, but obviously I didn't. Number 9 for me, your boy Frank Lampard. Obviously, one of the best midfielders in the Premier League era. Probably in the last 20, 30 years in Europe, really, if you look at Frank Lampard's career. He scored one of my favourite goals of his was against Barcelona when he dinks it from like a real tight angle. And he never used to get credit for having that ability. He was almost like people used to kind of, deflections from outside the box and all that kind of thing. And he was an incredible footballer who kind of got overlooked and kind of just got categorised as a guy that was just arriving late and trying to pick up scraps, but he was a fantastic talent and a great player.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I agree. Does he make your list, Buvey?
Yeah, he actually does. Yeah, obviously played for two of the great Premier League sides in Premier League history, in Man City and Chelsea. But just the way he carries himself as well. I think a lot of players, are very passionate and they kind of live on moments and intensity. He's a very calm character and he just represented these incredibly high standards for such a long period of time. I think he gets underrepresented in terms of his passing ability. I think people talk about Frank Lampard as a bit of a poacher in the box, kind of running onto things and being a little bit lucky. I think it's absolutely outrageous. He could control a game. He was very good in the tackle, better than someone like Scholes. Again, Gerrard and Lampard had that kind of balance to their game. And the goals that he scored, a lot of them weren't really in the box. A lot of them were from outside the box. A lot of them were sort of goals from different angles and stuff.
Big goals as well.
Unbelievable.
He scored in Champions League finals.
Came second in the Ballon d'Or.
Scored in the Champions League final.
Yeah.
I mean, won us the FA Cup as well. We played Everton, losing. He's pinged it in from 25 yards with left foot. Won us the league 2-2 that day at Bolton. Chelsea's top ever goal scorer. There's no doubt that.
Think of his England career as well. I know they didn't win anything.
Big moments for England as well. Big moment. The German one that wasn't given. The game where we played France. Everybody focuses on Rooney's performance, and rightly so. But England were 1-0 up. Frank Lampard scored a header. Big moments for England as well. No, an absolute icon. I think he's right to be in your list.
Number 9 for you guys?
Number 9 for me is John Terry. So I've gone John Terry. Again, just kind of conforming to what I said before about defenders are never gonna get the razzle dazzle that we're gonna build up to here for me. And therefore, I've picked the 2 best Premier League defenders as my baseline to start the conversation. I think John Terry was an exceptional player. I don't think anyone is better than him. I don't think anyone will be better than him for basically every metric. Something that's massively overlooked, particularly it's a boring debate and I'm not even going to feed into it. So I'm not going to make it a direct Ferdinand Terry thing. But Terry's passing was so underrated. Like
scored a lot of goals as well.
Scored a lot.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
No, the goal. I think
the goals are so underrated because they can get you over the line in crunch games.
I think people were aware of the goals because he beat David Unsworth's record to become the record defensive goal scorer. Because he did that, and Unsworth used to take the penalties.
Record? Sorry,
I think it was Bruce to Unsworth but Unsworth used to take the penalties.
Yeah.
Because he broke that record, I think people suddenly were aware of the goals that he would score and the threat that he would pose in the box. But for me, it's the passing because I'm now going to tap into it, but I don't want to. But people kind of do this, don't they? They think Terry is the robust, rugged, aggressive defender and Ferdinand is the cultured, ball-playing defender. And that's just not true. I'm not saying that Ferdinand wasn't that, but Terry on the ball was elite, absolutely elite. So many of our attacks would start with John Terry spraying the ball 60 yards with his wrong foot.
Why is he above Rio for you? What's this 1% difference?
I think I think he was just a better defender. I think in terms of like defending, he was better. And then there are certain achievements that I just think are amazing. The fact that after Rafael Benitez said that he was done, so Rafael Benitez, Chelsea manager 13, said that John Terry's career was over. 2 years later, so he's ended him here. 2 years later in 15, John Terry captains Chelsea to the league title, playing every minute of every Premier League game.
10 years after his first time he did it.
10 years after the first time he did it. And that same season, we beat Tottenham in the League Cup final. John Terry scores against Tottenham.
Amazing. Yeah, I remember that.
Was that Benitez thing not obviously completely different? Do you think that was a little bit like, because John Terry would have been very vocal?
Yeah, he didn't
and very dislike. He would have disliked Rafa Benitez. And it felt like it wasn't a footballing thing.
Totally. And I also think that it would have inspired John Terry. Like something that I think it's not always a good thing, but something that you have to acknowledge for John Terry, and I think there is a compliment within this. In the face of adversity. So when Benitez says you're done, that would have had an impact on Terry proving him wrong and winning the league. It's like, I remember going to Burnley one year, and it was John Terry's first game back off the back of the Wayne Bridge news. Can you imagine the reception at Turf Moor? Just think about what it would have been like. Chelsea win the game 1-0, John Terry's goal. You're just like, of course he did. Of course he did that.
Yeah.
So I've got John Terry as 9.
Have you done 9? Booth?
Yeah, Lampard.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Number 8 for me, Patrick Vieira. Obviously, phenomenal central midfielder. Did it all. I do favour midfielders that played in a 4-4-2 era because I feel like they just had to do everything. Like they didn't have the luxury of a sitter behind them. They didn't have the luxury of being the sitter with 8s in front of them. They just had to do it all. And I think he was an incredible leader. You look at Arsenal's period there. For me, that Arsenal United period was probably the great, again, a little bit biased, I know, but the best period in Premier League football, and he was a standout for it.
So
obviously, you look at his international career as well.
Yeah.
I was a big admirer of Patrick Vieira. So Patrick Vieira.
I'm surprised he's on your list a bit.
I love
Not because I don't rate Vieira. Far from it. I rate Vieira so highly. There just isn't room. There just isn't room for him on
there's
this
not enough
list.
space.
No, there just isn't
you
room.
ain't seen my list.
No, I haven't seen your list. I just know my list, and I know how highly I rate Vieira and other players similar to Vieira, and I just couldn't fit them in.
You know me, I'm a nostalgia merchant, innit?
I mean, so am I. So am I, and he didn't make mine.
I don't think there's anyone in my list that's currently playing
No,
has played-
I've got one.
or has played in the last 5 years.
I've got one that's currently playing.
None of them have played in the last 5 years.
I've got only one that's currently playing.
I think I know who it is. Yeah.
It's the only one that it can be at the moment.
Palmer.
I'm gonna. I've put in Terry for 8 as well. So yeah, I think you have to put at least one defender in there.
Terry 8. I've gone Cristiano Ronaldo 8.
Fair. We'll talk about Ronaldo in a bit.
It'll come up, won't it?
Yeah. Number 7 for me, Roy Keane. Greatest captain of all time. Just incredible what he did. He went from that midfielder that was box to box when he arrived from Nottingham Forest. He kind of had to, he played with, like people forget he played with Ince and Robbo. And then he starts playing with, Scholesy and all these players. And his longevity was incredible. And yeah, Roy Keane for me, I remember saying to him, funnily enough, when we were outside Old Trafford doing an overlap once, I went, you should have a statue over there, And I really believe that, like, he was the embodiment of Sir Alex Ferguson on the pitch. And I believe he should have had a statue out there. And he
What did
went,
he say to that? Can you remember?
He went, what? So all you lot can piss on it. Kind of like, self-depreciating that you'd expect from Roy Keane. But yeah, for me, one of the greatest players of all time, one of the United greatest players of all time. And he has to be in at 7 for me in here.
I've put in Eric Cantona at 7. I'm a little bit too young to be, remembering his prime years, but the weight of his name in Premier League history, how he kind of started the Premier League era. He was the best player at the start of the kind of rebrand to get Man United back to the level where they expect to be. The quality of goals. I remember the chip. I forgot who it was against. The famous Sunderland. I remember
the chest volley against Arsenal.
Yeah.
When the ball
when he had a broken
out.
he had a broken arm. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But goals like that actually made me fall in love with football. As much as I hate to say it, I always remember the chip and his celebration and the arrogance. And I think the Premier League kind of brand was almost built on his back. I think Thierry Henry and certain Man City players that we'll talk about harnessed it, the brand of Premier League football, the sexiness of it, the cinematic quality of Premier League football. Cantona he's the foundation of Premier League football in my opinion.
Also, you look at that era of time, all the stars were in Italy. Yeah. And it kind of changed the wave of football. And you look at, when everyone went, Kante took the Premier League title with him to Chelsea. He won it at Leeds.
Yeah.
Comes to Manchester United, wins it every year. Yeah. United did, apart from the year he was suspended. And it shows you his importance. And I also agree with his influence on that younger group of players around him. I don't think we win the treble without Cantona's influence. I think it was still there, when we won the treble.
No, of course. Yeah. Of course. That's the important thing that people seem to forget with the you don't win anything with kids. Hansen was right. You don't win anything with kids. The reason those kids won, and it was the year they won the league and the cup, it wasn't the Champions League year, the year they won the league and the cup. The reason that they won the league and the cup, of course, it was because of the brilliance of Beckham and Barton and Scholes and whatever else. But it was also because Brian Robson was in the team. Yeah. It was because Eric Cantona was in the team. It was because Gary Pallister was in the team. It was because Peter Schmeichel was in the team. So you don't win anything with kids was right. Which actually means my prediction was the worst one.
It definitely was.
Which actually means that. I've gone David Beckham next.
Ooh, Beckham's not made my top 10, even though he's my favourite Premier League player of all time.
Beckham made mine, primarily because I felt like I needed a representative from that team, and he was the one that I went for. Partly because I think he's a sensational footballer, but partly because I don't think enough people think that he's a sensational footballer, and I almost wanted to just talk about him with you two because I feel like he deserves 5 minutes of our time.
And I think David Beckham as well. People forget, he was second in the Ballon d'Or twice. Yeah, he should have won it in 1999 because Rivaldo won it 2001. Rivaldo won it in 99, And we knocked Rivaldo out in the group stages. Like, they were gone then. And you look at how important he was, the goals he scored. He scores against Arsenal in the FA Cup semi-final. People forget about that because of Giggs' goal.
Yeah.
He scores against Spurs on the final day of the season. People forget about it because Andy Cole scores the winner.
Yeah.
Like, you think of all the crucial goals. He whips the 2 in that we score in the Champions League final with. All the assists along the way. If you look at a lot of York's and Cole's goals, it's him just swinging it onto their head. Yeah. And I think people think he was like you just smash it into space. He stuck it on a sixpence.
Well, it's more than that, mate. I think people consider him a bit of obviously a celebrity, the first real footballer to get to that real quality of kind of celebrity, known in every corner of the world. Yeah. I think it depreciates how he's represented in the football world unfairly.
Yeah, I do as well. And that's almost why he's on the list.
And his documentary, I loved that, it. Yeah. But it disappointed me a bit because it didn't make him out to be the footballer he was, I think.
No, I agree.
Really, the documentary did a great job.
They didn't even mention him finishing second for the Ballon d'Or. That should be a huge part of like his...
Carvajal came fourth, do you know what I mean?
In 1999...
Then look at the icons that were in the...
Yeah.
Losing it to Rivaldo is very different.
The Ballon d'Or can be a little bit weird.
But in 1999, look at the players that would have been going for it. Yeah. Look at the teams we beat along the way to the Champions League.
Yeah.
Inter Milan and R9.
Del Piero.
Juventus and Zidane.
Outrageous, yeah.
Proper players, yeah.
It was nuts, man. The teams we were beating were crazy. And he was pulling it out the bag a lot.
Yeah. I think people listening or watching at home would just question maybe when he went to Real Madrid in his 20s, went to Galaxy very young. A lot of his famous moments for England as well. Is it the Premier League? Does he get in ahead of other Premier League icons that played 400 games in the Premier League, 500 games? That would just be the debate, I think. To be in the top 10, that's what I'm saying.
Do you know, off the back of a conversation, I wouldn't mind if people concluded that he didn't deserve to be top 10 Premier League players of all time. But I do think that it's important and noteworthy that he is discussed and acknowledged.
If I was being really biased, it'd be one.
As a candidate. Pardon?
If I was being really biased, it'd be number one. So everyone's done 7.
Yeah, 6.
We spoke about him already, but number 6 for me is Eric Cantona. If he had a little bit more longevity in the league, maybe he'd be higher up the list. But the players that you'll see come after him in the list will make it clear. But yeah, Eric Cantona, Le Roi.
I went Gianfranco Zola here.
Oh, that's a personal.
That's a very bad look. I got there from Buvey. I got an evil eye from Buvey.
I respect it though, because it's how he made him
your
feel
opinion,
about
of course.
No, but I also think like Gianfranco Zola was the personal embodiment of what Chelsea then became. Gianfranco Zola was the moment that Chelsea went from a team of contenders at best. To a team capable of winning silverware. A team capable, in fact, of winning the league. We didn't win any silverware until he came. He came in the 96, we won the silverware in the 97, and didn't stop winning it.
He never won the league title with you, did he?
No. But won the...
I'm being harsh because of course he's a legend for you guys.
If Gustavo Puig didn't get injured in 1999, it could have been a very different
But I think if you canvass 1,000 football fans right now on the streets of London or streets of the UK, I think as a world, 0 of them put him in the top 10.
Zola.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not...
I love how Rory's the only one that remembers Gustavo Puig got injured in 99 and defended Chelsea's title race.
It did. We beat you 5-0 that year. We beat the treble winners 5-0.
Zola's high and... I'm guessing he's above either someone like an Ashley Cole, Dennis Bergkamp,
but it's how
Sergio Aguero.
Feel about football,
it's an emotional thing, of course.
I've tried to make it not emotional because if it was emotional, we'd be talking about Dennis Wise and Dan Petrescu and Mark Steen almost immediately. So I've tried to
analytical, Zola can't be in there.
I do think that being totally fair and non-biased, there is a world where Gianfranco Zola is in the top 10 Premier League players of all time. You mentioned Bergkamp. I know Bergkamp
above Rio Ferdinand.
It's different. It's different. It's just different. What Gianfranco Zola represents, the way you spoke about Cantona sort of coming in.
But Cantona won the league title
also,
4 or 5 times.
We've got a duty, bro. We've got a duty. There's one of the best players in the Premier League at the moment, plays for Chelsea, and he doesn't know who Gianfranco Zola is.
Yeah.
That's why we have a duty on things like this to kind of put their flag back out there and say this is who they are.
Yeah,
he is a great. I love
even
Zola.
If we're a little bit wrong of their rankings. We have
your look. Your look
that
you gave me. If we were doing 20, would you have given me the same look, or do you think he could be a contender for 20?
I think he's definitely a contender for 40.
Where is he in Chelsea in terms of Chelsea's greatest ever players? Is he like third to Terry and Terry?
I think at certain things he's Chelsea's best ever.
Is he above Andy Cole?
There are certain things that he's the best Chelsea player for. Like in terms of like magic and skill, I don't think anyone that comes close.
Is he above David Silva?
Maybe Eden Hazard. That would be the only player. but he wasn't a typical centre forward. So when people go, who was your best ever centre forward? You obviously go Didier Drogba.
Yeah, he'd be a number 10 now.
He'd be a strict number 10. And at that particular skill, there was nobody better. Also, remember how brilliant he was. He played with Maradona for Italy. He played with Maradona for Napoli.
Yeah.
He was part of an Italian team.
No one's debating his world-class ability. But we're gonna have a list of players that didn't even get in top 10, and Zola's above a few of them. That's all I'm gonna crash. I mean, he's above David Silva, I'm guessing, for you, and
David Silva didn't
didn't even enter my mind.
Didn't enter mine either.
Company. Yeah.
You're talking to a couple of lads that are
Obviously the City thing, but then you're talking about guys that won 4 or 5 Premier League titles, 6 Premier League titles, some of them.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I hear you. Who was 6 for you?
I put in Steven Gerrard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scholes is number 5 for me. Mercurial talent. You looked at him earlier on in his career. He started off as a striker, interestingly, and then Roy Keane done his cruise ship. Remember when he did it at Haaland?
Yeah.
You're faking injury. Then we had to play Paul Scholes in midfield, and Paul Scholes didn't look back from playing there.
Yeah.
Man had asthma and everything. He was just bossing midfield. And then you look at how he went from being that guy that scored goals, stayed on the edge of the box, to dropping deep, controlling midfields, controlling the tempo of the game. An icon, a hero, a legend. Hear about he's spoken about in Spain and things like that. Paul Scholes for me, for number 5.
I've got Giggs here. I've gone Ryan Giggs.
Yeah, that's a great show.
We'll talk about it.
That's a great show.
I love that.
We'll talk about it.
The video took a total turn there. Rather than Buvey's going to rank my rankings. Yeah.
No, you said Zola. I know he had a meltdown. I'm not gonna lie. And then, but Giggsy, I don't even think about Giggsy. But
did you not put Giggs in yours at all? That's interesting.
You're not allowed to call him Giggsy if you never thought about him.
Yeah,
but I did another video the other month.
He's right Giggs to you.
I put Giggsy in the Hall of Fame, didn't I? Video.
So Giggs
Miles
didn't make
laughed at me
okay,
for
that's
that.
fine. But what? No. Of course he's in the Hall of Fame.
No, the Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore, right.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's wild. So I said Ryan Giggs next. I mean, again, in a similar way to Beckham, I don't understand. And Giggs is actually more impressive than Beckham. I don't understand how Giggs' contribution is forgotten. You know, if you did an all-time Premier League team, this is when you know that either we're wrong or the world is wrong, and one way or the other, we need to shut the door and never go out. If you do a Premier League 11, I did one where I said Ryan Giggs left wing. Everyone went, what?
Yeah.
And I went,
because they remember him a little bit.
I don't know what to say here.
Unless you put Ronaldo left wing.
But then if you remember,
I'll see
as a central midfielder, even in his latter stages, if you watch us against Real Madrid and that, he was controlling the game from central midfield.
Yeah.
People forget that.
Not against
when he was a
Barcelona.
winger, and he used to skip through defences, there was nothing like it.
We played you, and again, this demonstrates quite how brilliant Ryan Giggs was as a player, because the players that I'm about to say that he was playing with, I remember Rooney scoring this day. So Giggs was doing it with Rooney, but I can equally remember Ryan Giggs setting up Brian McClare at Stamford Bridge on the Boxing Day in a 3-2 game where Eddie Newton scored for us. So you're like, hang on a minute, he's doing it with Brian Robson, who feels like a totally different era to Wayne Rooney. The consistency is Giggs.
Giggs 13 Premier League titles.
He did it with Brian Robson and Alex Butner.
Yeah.
He did it with Peter Schmeichel and David De Gea.
Chicharito.
Like Danny Welbeck. Mark.
Tom Cleverley.
He played with them all.
No, I know. It's unbelievable. And also, I remember going to Old Trafford. We lost 1-0 at home. Rooney scored. It was a Champions League game. You beat us 1-0 at Stamford Bridge. We went away. We got back in the game. We must have gone. I think you might have gone 1-0 up. We equalised.
Like 14 seconds.
Drogba, I think, equalised. We got back in the game, and we were in the upper tier, not round the corner. We're like, right, this is it. Game on. 10 seconds later, Giggs has just lobbed the keeper. It's like, it's over, isn't it? Like, we thought we were in the game and it's just over. But yeah, Ryan Giggs, again, I've brought him up because I just don't feel like people appreciate the brilliance.
They don't.
Yeah, I didn't put him in.
That's a good example, though, to demonstrate.
He was 11th. Yeah. He was 11th. Come on. I've put in Sergio Aguero, 5, one of the highest scorers in the Premier League. I think joint best Premier League striker of all time, the most iconic goal in the history of the Premier League, one of the most successful strikers, nearly double the amount of titles that Henry won. His first second on the pitch against Swansea City to his last moment where he scored in his final game for Man City in the league. He was a world-class striker, and I think he gets completely unfairly dismissed by football fans because of the City rivalry, because City are good now, because City maybe have slightly less fans on social media. He isn't ever fairly represented on shows like The Overlap, in my opinion, and other football shows that are dominated by United ex-players. Aguero is better than Andy Cole, Michael Owen, in my opinion, Dwight York, some of these big strikers, Drogba, he's miles above all these guys.
I think Sergio Aguero, if I was doing top 10 Premier League strikers in history, he's definitely there. But he just doesn't. He would be the City player that would possibly make it into my top 10, but he doesn't.
I think you have to. I think, by the way, and obviously you lads have your own opinions, and I respect it. I think City have to be ranking higher on all of our lists because City are the second most successful side in the history of the Premier League. But there has to be some representation a little bit higher up the list.
I don't necessarily think it works like that when we're doing players, though. Like, when we were doing the Mount Rushmore, I thought it was a very bad strategy when we kind of went, well, we need one from this and one from that. If the Premier League icons are 4 Man United players, then so be it.
That's the Man United dominated to a point where you could have the top 10 could be Man United players.
Exactly. And if that's how the list ends up.
But I've tried to have one Liverpool.
No, but I don't think you
Arsenal,
need to do
Chelsea.
that. I don't think you need to do that.
I think you do a little bit. I think you do.
No, but it's not. We're not
you're
operating
pandering
in
to the
democracy.
audience.
The Premier League's not a free-for-all. The Premier League is a competition. Some sides will never win it because they don't have the success.
have
That's
to
the
have won
case.
it to
Matt
be a-
Letizia is squeaking in an
You don't
audience.
have to have won it. Matt Letizia could be a contender for this. If
Yeah,
he
but he
wanted.
wouldn't be for me because he never...
It doesn't matter whether you won it. Neither did Gerrard, and you put him in it.
Yeah, but you represent the second biggest club in the country.
Oh, yeah, but now you're moving the rules. You had to have won it a minute ago. Now we represented the biggest club. Southampton are the biggest club on the South Coast, mate. We
They're not
represented them.
Portsmouth
Where was Aguero for you? 5th or 4th?
He's fourth for me.
Or 4th.
Sorry, no, fifth. We're on the fifth. Yeah, he's fifth.
4th for me, Thierry Henry.
Fourth, yeah.
Phenomenal talent, phenomenal
I
striker.
think we're going to be talking about him again, so we can come back to
Yeah,
this.
we'll talk about Thierry Henry in a bit.
I've gone Alan Shearer here.
Shearer didn't
Great
make my
shout,
list.
mate.
I love this. You're so. I
don't know how
you're a big fan of my list,
You
aren't you?
squeezed in Zola, so you've basically only done 9 real shouts, and you've got great shouts in there. I don't get I don't get it. I've tried to be
Shearer's
fair
not
with
on my
mine.
list.
Yeah, Shearer's not on my list. I don't know.
You've let yourself down there.
I think nostalgia merchant Shearer. Something about Shearer, man.
Mate, you just went great shout, and now you've just gone nostalgia. merchant.
He's very high on your list, though. Fuck, you know.
What, you mean the top scorer in the Premier League? Weirdly high on my list.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Is he better than Harry Kane?
Yes. Yeah.
Alan Shearer's better than Harry Kane?
Yeah.
I don't think he is. And Harry Kane's not in my list.
No.
Harry Kane's definitely not on anyone's fucking list.
But why? If Shearer can be, why can't Harry Kane?
260 goals and a Premier League title.
And a title.
Is a difference, isn't it? 260 Premier.
Well,
200.
if Harry Kane stayed...
No, but mate, 260 is mental.
No, it is. But if Harry Kane stayed...
There's also a story. Like, I think that we were all quite snide to Alan Shearer because the story where he basically demonstrated loyalty and is penalised for that loyalty. Like, if Alan Shearer wasn't quite so loyal, he would have won 7 Premier League titles at Manchester United, and he would have been in your list. And he would have been in your list because.
And I'd argue, in a ruthless kind of way, he should have done that.
No, I think he probably
I
should
think
as
it's
well.
your
but-
responsibility to go to the highest level and perform. If I'm a top sprinter, my responsibility is to get to the Olympics.
But there is also something
not the regional Bristol 100-meter championship.
No, but
Do you know what I mean?
Football is also, Buvey. Football is also, as you know, an emotional attachment of a game. It's not rational, it's not logical, and it isn't simply a cutthroat, random pursuit of success. Sometimes he went and got his success. He went to Southampton, worked hard, got in the team, got the success at Blackburn, won the Premier League title.
Then you should have kicked on me.
And arguably, yes, and in my opinion, probably I agree with you. But there is also something very noble about him saying, I'm now going to go and play for the team that I dreamed of playing for when I was a child.
Yeah, have one season at the end. One season,
He didn't win the league at Blackburn.
No, I don't think he does it if he doesn't win the league. I don't think he makes.
He had a chance to win a couple trophies with Newcastle, back-to-back cup finals.
But they were
got
never.
beat by
They were
Arsenal,
never.
beat
They were
by
never
United.
going to win them. Really, they were never going to win them. Whereas, look, choosing to not sign for Manchester United. Manchester United signed Solskjaer, didn't they? Because they didn't get Shearer. As Fergie was very open about wanting Shearer more than once. I know what Buvey's saying, and on some level, I agree with it. But I don't think that we should be too harsh about somebody who, when they were 8 years old, they went to bed dreaming of playing and scoring goals in front of the Gallowgate. When they got into a position to live that dream, they chose that dream. We're being very harsh to go, no, mate, you should do the best that you should.
Oh, no. I haven't taken any of that into consideration. He's just not in my top 10. I think every player I've mentioned here is better than him.
Tony Hibbert played for his local club, Everton, and he played hundreds of Premier League games to a decent level. Alan Shearer was better than Newcastle, that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, he knows that, but he chose to. I don't think we should penalise loyalty. But anyway, he's in my list.
Did you say 4, Boo?
Buvey hasn't done 4, has he?
4 for me is Kevin De Bruyne. Because I think he's the best midfielder of his kind in the history of the Premier League in terms of a pure creative midfielder. The amount of titles he's won is huge, and he's been part of the best single side in the history of the Premier League, the Centurions.
Number 3 for me, Cristiano Ronaldo, 07, 08. I don't think there's a better player in Premier League history than that. Cristiano Ronaldo wins the Ballon d'Or. Not many Premier League players have done that. Wins the European Cup, wins the Premier League. Obviously went on to be who he was and obviously achieved great things, which I kind of think is why the 07, 08 seasons lost a little bit. But if you look at that player then...
What do you mean lost?
Like, because he achieved so much after 07, 08.
Oh, you forget about it a bit.
And he's won so many more Ballon d'Ors and things like that. We forget about that season.
Yeah.
But that season, he was just unstoppable.
He's unplayable.
Everything he touched turned to gold. Like, unbelievable. And we would have won the treble that year. We lose against Portsmouth at home, and then it's Portsmouth-Cardiff in the final. We went down to 10 men. Remember, Rio was in goal for the penalty.
Wow, yeah.
Like, we were so
That
close.
was an
to
FA Cup
actually doing
semi-final?
It was a quarter-final.
Quarterfinal.
We were so close to actually doing the treble then. Like, that for me is arguably my favourite Manchester United team ever as well. I think the greatest. But Cristiano Ronaldo.
What, Tevez, Rooney,
season-
Ronaldo? That's disgusting.
Tevez, Rooney, Ronaldo, Carrick, Hargreaves, Scholes, Rio, Vidic, Evra, Wes Brown or Gary Neville.
Van der Sar.
And Van der Sar. And you look at the goal, the defensive record that team had as well. I think they kept 14 consecutive clean sheets or something.
I'm so glad Portsmouth did
mental.
you. I'm so glad
Yo,
Portsmouth.
imagine.
Well done, Harry.
Jeez.
Well done, Harry.
Yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo, number 3.
Yeah, I mean, he was on my list already.
Yeah, number 3 for me is Ronaldo as well.
Okay, nice. In at number 2, Sir Ryan Giggs. He's the Premier League's Maldini, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's
I
the
thought
Premier
you
League's
missed one out,
Maldini. Is Maldini the one with the most trophies for in it? He's the Premier League's Maldini, right?
Hang on, I haven't done my 3.
Oh, you haven't done your
No.
I thought yours was Ronaldo as well.
No, my 3 wasn't Ronaldo. My 3 is Henry.
Henry.
My 3 is Henry. We've spoken about how brilliant he was. I mean, obviously, some would say he should be higher, but Thierry Henry has to be on this list.
He struck fear into
always scored against us.
Always scored against. What about the goal he scored? We flicked it up and just volleyed it over his back.
That was against Man
Things
United,
like
wasn't
that.
it?
Yeah, Bartes'
when he
goal.
did that.
Yeah, it was that.
Yeah, it was the ease at which he did it and the rate and consistency at which he did it. It's very rare that you have that. I mean, we have it a little bit with Erling Haaland at the moment. But you know when you go into a weekend of fixtures, you just know someone's going to score.
I remember there was a goal that stands out to me against Bolton where he kind of plays a 1-2, picks it up on the edge of the box and just smash it. I say smash, but he caressed it.
He did used to smash them though. He did used to there was one, I think he might have been playing Villa at Highbury in front of the North Bank, and he just puts his laces through and it sort of swerves the wrong way and goes in.
I think what he meant culturally as well to the Premier League was huge.
Yeah, what he represents to Arsenal today. Part of who Arsenal are today is because of what Thierry Henry did 2 decades ago.
And then even coming back scoring.
Mate, the goal
in the number 12.
Yeah, against Leeds.
Leeds United.
Mate, the goal that he scored at Highbury, again in front of the North Bank, against Tottenham, when he just ran the length of the pitch. Like, against Tottenham. You know, it's important to acknowledge like the significance.
You know how you talk about Gareth Bale, like what he could do? It was kind of like Henry.
Like that.
You know, when he was just in full flow, he had more to his game as well.
I don't think a striker can do that. I don't think a striker ever did that up to that point in the Premier League. I know Cantona was dropping deep and Bergkamp.
I'm glad he
actually,
did
not in the same way.
well.
Yeah, I agree.
Henry was a pure number 9, and he was carrying the ball from the left, the right.
I'm glad he didn't because it annoys Arsenal fans. But he also should have won the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, over Nedved.
Yeah, Cannavaro.
Yeah.
Cannavaro.
Was it? No, it's Nedved.
No, it's Nedved. That
No,
year.
and Cannavaro.
Yeah, but Cannavaro.
He was second.
Cannavaro 06.
06.
Cannavaro 06, wasn't it?
I get the World Cup a little bit.
Yeah.
Nedved for Juve.
No, it's
Jesus
ridiculous. It was
Christ.
ridiculous. No, but the World Cup, Cannavaro wasn't a better footballer than Henry. It's ridiculous. It's just dumb. It's like dumb.
But people that think about football.
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't see it. Yeah, you know, I kind of appreciate football on a different level to you. Oh, if you don't agree with me, it's because you don't quite understand it. That's hateful, isn't it? Absolutely hateful. No, Thierry Henry, I've never really known fear
What
like
number
it.
was that for you?
That was 2 for me.
2 for you.
We're
Giggs
on
was
2,
2
yeah?
for me.
2 for me is Wayne Rooney.
No, that was 3 for me. Sorry, that was 3. That because I didn't do a 3.
Let's go again. So 3 for you.
3 for me there was Thierry Henry.
Right. Number 2 for me, Ryan Giggs. Sir Ryan Giggs. 13 Premier League titles. The Premier League's Maldini. Like, evergreen. The longevity of him was nuts. And then how he changed his game as well from the flying winger that would score incredible goals, run through all your defences, twist blood, to then like being able to just see the game as it was and make these passes and things like that. Ryan Giggs. Remember that record as well when he just scored every season?
Yeah.
Like there wasn't a Premier League season. He hadn't scored.
Yeah. He'd scored in every Premier League season.
18
I know,
years?
it's crazy.
18
Absolutely
years?
unbelievable.
20 years?
Unbelievable.
Phenomenal.
And now you get 19-year-olds going, yeah, but mate, his XG stats weren't particularly good.
Dicks.
Yeah, painful.
Also, like, you can't compare Ryan Giggs to Salah because they played ultimately different positions. 4-4-2 and 4-3-3.
Yeah.
Like, you're so much further away from the goal. You have to do so much more defensively.
Of course.
Like, the game's changed, but Ryan Giggs is number 2.
Yeah. And my number 2 is Wayne Rooney.
Talk about
Yeah. Look, the best English player of all time, in my opinion. Total talent as well. It's not just about finishing. The goal record's incredible, but his total ability on the ball, the way he could carry the ball, his defensive work, his attitude, going from Everton at such a young age to Man United, being instantly successful, scored on his debut. He's the best advertisement for Premier League football from an English perspective. Obviously, it's in this league, it's in this country. It has to be Wayne Rooney.
Who's your number 1, Adam? Rooney?
My hero, my mate, Wayne Rooney.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people like to talk about him as well and say he could have achieved more in his career. And I ask, what could he have achieved more? Maybe winning a trophy with England, but he's not the only one that didn't do that.
No.
And I think when you look at his career, he broke the record at Manchester United. He broke the record for England. He won every single trophy he could win at Manchester United, from the Premier League to the Europa League, the Champions League, FA Cup, Club World Cup, League Cup. He won everything he could win whilst breaking all those records, whilst scoring some of the greatest goals you've ever seen. His catalogue of goals, I think, no one really can come close to it. Like, all sorts of goals that he scored. He'd sacrifice himself for Ronaldo if he needed to. If he needed to be the main man, he'd step up and do that. I just don't think there'll ever be a player like Wayne Rooney, and I don't think there ever was a player like Wayne Rooney.
It says a lot that what you just said is spot on, and it's completely ridiculous criticism. He's won everything. What you've said is accurate. Of course it is. It says a lot about who he was, how talented he was, that I think he could have squeezed a lot more out of his career.
You know who
as well.
he was? He's the Mike Tyson of football. Just a GOAT, bruv. Like, there was no stopping him on his day.
He's done what you've
16, bullying. That Arsenal defence, by the way.
Yeah.
That wasn't Sol Campbell.
Sol Campbell,
defense.
David Seaman in goal, wasn't it? Chipping Seaman from 16 years old from what, 20, 25 yards in what was a must-win game. You know, they won that game because of him. There was a wonderful goal. I think he scored for Everton at the Valley, and he sort of takes it, you know, like kills it dead. You know, like the way that you know when you watch snooker, the way that they hit the white ball makes contact with the red ball, and the white ball just stops. You just like completely stop
Dead
it.
weight,
A goal shot, dead. He does that. A ball fired into his feet. He traps it dead with one foot, like spins so quickly, like he's such an athlete as well, and then just laces it with his weak foot into the like roof of the net.
Yeah.
Like, I think that Wayne Rooney, it's right to acknowledge him the way that Adam has. And whilst I do see what people say, you know, when they say, could we have got more out of him? I know what they mean by that. But all it really is a compliment to Rooney because he was so good. You just wonder that what more could have happened, because when he was 16, he had the world at his feet.
You know what it is?
We pinned our
By
national
30,
hope.
He lived his life on his own terms. Like, if he
Yeah.
wanted to go out and have a drink and that, he would.
Yeah.
And then he'd still be the best fucking player there was when he came back to August in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Like, I admire that more than maybe just being an absolute geek.
Yeah, there is something. There is something to be said for that. There is something to be said for players like you know when people go, if Eden Hazard wanted to win the Ballon d'Or, he would have done. And you're like, well, he didn't want to, and it's got nothing to do with you whether he wanted it or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He wanted to come back fairly
And I think like,
solid
you know, when you look at-
after a summer.
like his record, it was him and Ronaldinho on all the FIFA covers.
Yeah.
And that's like culturally significant. Like, I know Rory
it
probably
is.
doesn't. Like,
We all want it to be Wayne Rooney.
No,
we all want it to be Wayne Rooney playing with our
Wayne Rooney
mates.
Street
I get it.
Striker, remember that?
Yeah.
Like,
It is.
Oh, that was
it
a
is.
great show.
with his boot jeans on,
kicking
controlling
balls into a bin and all that.
Yeah.
Like, it was nuts, man.
But that's important, by the way. I'll have to say this before we wrap. That is important. He came from street football, right? He represents the young kid, that working class kid. I think it's important. Premier League football's got into its stratosphere. The millions of pounds. We signed Brazilians and the Spanish guys coming over doing very, very well. But he comes from a working class background, and he went to the precipice of English football.
know what?
Yeah. Have you seen his documentary?
Yeah, it's
Seen
amazing.
a bit about the grandmother who basically sold sweets out of a caravan.
You say it so
And-
people that.
Yeah, it's in his doc, but like his grandmother, and do you know why this chimes me? Because Paul Merton's family is similar. Like, his grandmother used to just have a sort of caravan parked up on the street where she would sell bars of chocolate or whatever. She'd always
little
give him a
top
few,
shop.
and then he'd take some from her and sell it at school. It's like you know how we really glamorize kind of favela footballers. In its own way, Liverpool was its favela for Rooney.
And you know, and you look at that and you remember, like, him finishing playing for Everton, scoring against Arsenal, going playing with his mates.
Yeah.
Someone coming and seeing him having a beer and be like, hold up.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do that. And I think he hasn't lost that.
Yeah.
For all the millions he's earned, for all the attention he's had, for everything that's happened in his life, it'd be easy for him to forget who he is. And he hasn't. Like, we met him and he's just the nicest guy I've ever met.
No, he's a
he's phenomenal.
gentleman,
but
gentleman.
you still see him and think, that's fucking Wayne.
And he took a lot of criticism from the media.
Oh, mate.
A lot of pressure.
Mate.
He's a
It was
little
like
bit
David
of it
Beckham
is-
2.0. It was like
it was
nasty,
a little bit
tabloid.
Tony Adams.
And the way he dealt with it, and I think he dealt with
It's a
it
bit
well.
anti-working class, that though.
Of course it was.
It was, you know, if he didn't have that accent and he didn't come from where we come from, I think
the mumble and
It was
very smart guy, by the way. I think where he talks about he's now managing Plymouth. It's not an easy thing to be a manager. He's taking big decisions in his
And
life.
he's took that job, knowing he's going to have to graft to get to where he wants to go. He could easily take a job in Saudi Arabia, make loads of money, and he's not going anywhere with his
just be a
managerial
pundit.
career. He wants to be as good of a manager as he was a player.
or really
You
take
have
the
to
easy
admire that.
life and be a pundit.
Trust me,
On the club.
Plymouth is not the easy life. Trust me.
Yeah, bunch of pie faces after.
yeah, no.
Who's your number one, Boo?
For me, it's Thierry Henry for everything we described. I think he just brought this element of cinematic quality to the Premier League in a way I've never seen as a kid.
And I went for Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard was my number one. I think what he did at Chelsea, the goals that he scored, the guarantee, the ridiculous volume of goals from midfield, never known anything like it. And I tell you what, if he was in this team now, we'd be winning the league.
If he didn't follow you on Instagram, would you still be saying?
Did you see that?
He follows you on Instagram.
Did I tell you that? Yeah. I was so happy.
He's going to Coventry.
I was so happy.
Yeah,
Mate, I'll be there. I'll be there. Highfield Road till I die.
Coventry against Plymouth, me and Rory in the stands. Yeah, boy.
Mate, I'll be there.
That's gonna happen. That's actually gonna happen.
I'll be listening to the specials. I'll be having a great time in Coventry. They call it Cov, don't they? We live and die in these towns.
COV.
Yeah.